And welcome here, guys. Welcome to Memory Lane, movies down memory lane, with me, Stephen Billings, my friends Andrew Cabral and Dan Skip Allen. What's up, guys?
Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone, for another trip down the old memory lane. Gotta dust off all the old memories to bring them out for this one.
Yeah, I've been Steven Spielberg's been on my mind lately, so it's fitting that we're dealing with one of the greats of all time, one of his greats and one of the greats of all time, as far as I'm concerned. A movie that I absolutely love.
And it is the 50th anniversary of Jaws, like literally yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
Dan last minute tried to change this episode to Jaws because he has this, because he is a critic and he's always looking for angles to write articles about. He's like, hey, let's just switch it to Jaws. I was like, Dan, E.T. is amazing. Let's not change it.
No,
and he even told me, he was like, E.T. means more to me. And I was like, that's the point of this show.
Yeah.
So let's not change it for some angle because it's 50 years.
Well, we at least get the plug-in. So we're plugging Spielberg.
We're plugging it.
We're probably going to talk about his work anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Jaws gets all the, to be honest, Jaws gets all the fucking Spielberg love out of any of his movies. Between that and Jurassic Park, it gets the most love. And E.T., though loved, I think is a tier down. You know, it's
higher on my list. It's higher on my list.
Well, it is me too, but I'm saying in the sense of public like remembrance.
If you go on to Letterboxd, there were many more low ratings for ET than I expected from people that I follow. Because you know how when you follow people on Letterboxd, you can see their star ratings of a particular movie when you go to that specific movie's page. I saw a lot of low ratings for ET, and I was shocked by some of the people that I saw them from.
I will tell you, just as a quick, not getting into anything, people tend to look at ET and they feel like it has lost its luster, similar to Braveheart over the years. People felt like Braveheart has lost its luster and it didn't deserve to win best. People feel like it doesn't hold up. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like looking left, looking around, saying, "What do you mean does it hold up? This movie's incredible. Yeah. What do you mean it doesn't hold up?"
Well, I mean, to me, what I've gathered is that, and this is somewhat of a Spielberg thing in general, I think, is that his more sentimental movies, people don't seem to hold them like more modern watchers, or even ones that have progressed in their watching and maybe have grown out of his more sentimental movies. You know, things like, you know, what's some of the more like, I guess even
the third kind.
Yeah, it's not really sentimental. It's definitely got some similar themes to E.T., but like some of his more like, I'm trying to think of some of the better examples. Like,
I mean, Hook is one.
Hook is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hook is one people tend to may not so much grow out of, but reassess as they get older, as almost having that nostalgic lens for, because of they saw it when they were so young. Because that movie is, is very kind of light, fun adventure with a sentimental heart to it about, being a child and growing old and all this kind of stuff. But E.T. is very much his, like, that's the core of Spielberg sentimentality, wonder, that this is definitely his, that Amblin feeling as it's been come to know.
Yeah. If you want to pick a movie in his filmography that has that thing that they copy now tremendously too many times today with your Stranger Things and it's started with E.T. It's that formula of group of kids
on bikes.
Some kind of sci-fi angle, typically is involved. So it's,
well, when they brought back all of this kind of 80s nostalgia over the last 15 or so years or so, they went back to a lot of Spielberg-esque type of things. Remember the movie Super 8? The J.J. Abrams film?
I love that movie. Yeah.
Perfect. Like that's a Spielberg movie. You know what I mean?
It's
done
a
by
homage
Abrams
for sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then after that, we got Stranger Things, and we had like a whole other 80s slew of those types of movies with young people in the 80s going on adventures.
They killed it. It's a kids on bikes genre. It's a subgenre of action adventure. It's kids on bikes. It's a subgenre. That's
Kids don't ride bikes anymore. Now it's kids
do they?
kids on hoverboards. I don't know, but
I'll be honest, Stephen. When was the last time you rode a bike?
actually, the other day I did.
Oh,
Actually,
damn it! I thought
funny
I was
enough,
going to catch you in.
you didn't get me this time,
I
buddy.
haven't been on a bike since I got my license when I was 16. Like I
Yeah,
just
come on.
never went back.
It's half your life, buddy.
I've had
Over half your life.
I've
Yeah,
had
it really is.
multiple times where I didn't have a car, so I didn't have a way to get around. I had to ride a bike, Angie. So that was last year. So
Yeah.
I've ridden a bike very recently, quite often.
Yeah, but yeah. So if nobody has figured it out yet, we're talking E.T. This was Dan's pick. So he chose 1982's E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial, directed by Steven Spielberg. We got a few comments in here already. Adam Schofield says some people like crying at movies think crying at movies isn't cool. E.T. rocks. I saw it late when I was about 16 and I was a mess. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I've cried multiple times watching ET over the years.
Oh yeah, dude.
I'm right there with you, buddy.
Yeah, it's not it's a movie that I will get into it, but it's definitely a movie that has a very personal connection to Spielberg himself when it comes to his upbringing, his parental parent, his parents, their whole situation, and then along with that, just kind of this, sense of like being an outsider, being lonely, being kind of finding a connection in a place where you didn't expect it is all there, but. As we always do, this is Dan's pick, so it's a kind of more about interviewing Dan and kind of getting his perspective. And of course, we gauge each of these episodes with the philometer or the philometer here, and it goes from obsessed all the way down to not for me. So of course, Dan is at obsessed, and we will. I would say right now I'm obsessed. I'm already an obsessed fan of this movie, so you don't have to convince me in here. Andrew, where are you at?
I'm not quite at the obsessed level, but I'm above good stuff. If there was a point in between those 2 points, that's where I am.
Yeah.
Definitely upon a rewatch, it definitely, got me closer up there. But I am curious to hear Dan's backstory with his relationship with this movie, because he's of a different era than you and I.
An era that actually kind of was an adult. He was an adult when this was out. So please tell us your relationship.
I was 8 years old.
Oh no, never mind. I thought you were like 75. Sorry.
No, I was 8 years old in 1972. I always tell people I saw this when I was 7 years old, but I started doing the math and I said to myself, wait, I think I was 8 years old when I saw the perfect age to see.
I was going to say you were at the right age.
I was about 8.5 years old. June is right in the middle between my birthday and but yeah, I was 8 years old. Mom, Dad, really mom packed us all into the car. Yeah, put the brothers and the sister in the car. And we went to a thing called the drive-in. The drive-in. Where you put your car, you put these sound things on the side of your windows. You go get your concessions out of there, and then you watch this giant screen in the middle of a field with a bunch of other cars. How about that? It's called a drive-in theater.
They're out there still, Dan. We got one here. So yeah.
No,
I've got one here too.
I'm just having fun.
I've never gone.
I'm just having fun. No. But that's when I saw E.T. for the first time at the ripe young age of 8 years old in 1982. And it's pitch black out except for that screen and the stars. And when E.T. was on that bike with Elliot, it just felt like he went right through that screen and right up into the stars, and he was riding off into the stars with Elliot in that bike. And that music of John Williams, who at the time, I might add, was the conductor of the Boston Pops, which is where I'm from, Boston, Massachusetts. So I have a tie to John Williams as well. That music is like some of the most iconic music from John Williams. But the thing that I always hear, what is it about this movie? Why do you like it so much? I said, because first of all, I was a kid. I would have loved to have found an alien and nurtured it back to health and let it go off and go home. It's basically two boys. I'm going to say E.T. was a boy, and he found another boy, and they became friends, and one boy helped another boy get back home to his mom and dad. And E.T. had a mother who was single. We had a sister and a brother, and she was taking care of these boys and girl, and they were struggling, and everything wasn't good because dad was in Mexico. And my mother did a lot for us, considering what she was handed, the hand that she was dealt. My father was an alcoholic. He wasn't there. He'd work, maybe he'd be at a job for a week or two, and spend his paycheck, and we wouldn't have a lot of money. So my mother did a lot for us, me and my brothers and sisters, and she had 4 kids by the time she was 18. So this movie really meant a lot to me, based on Dee Wallace and how she nurtured these kids and took care of these. But these kids were kids, and they had adventures, and they did some fun stuff. And so E.T. was something we did together as a family, without my father, of course. And it was something I've always had in the back of my head, that this really meant a lot to me, the experience of seeing E.T. as an 8-year-old with my brothers and sister in the car, my mother. And I will never, this is one of those moments in my life that really made me the film fan that I am today. One of those moments, those moments, those moments in your life when you become a film fan, a fan of movies, a fan of cinema. This is one of those moments for me. And I will never forget this moment. The rest of I could get Alzheimer's, and I'm never going to forget this moment, because this is one of the seminal moments in my entire life. And it's an amazing moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's movies that you would expect that movies that you saw that you really love when you're later in life would stick with you more, but really it isn't. I mean, like stuff you see when you're a kid, if it's profound enough, it stays with you the rest of your life. It didn't matter how good the movie is. I got some memories of movies that ain't even that good, but they're there. And but yeah, I mean, all the things you say about, if I would have been there having the same experience, them shots of even watching them on the screen in my home, like where he shows, like, the starry sky. I could just imagine how it could just leap off the screen with how well it's photographed. But yeah, I mean, was Spielberg even at that time for you as a kid, somebody that people like were like, oh, it's a Steven Spielberg movie, we're going to see this? Like, was it already, he was already a name?
Yeah, because Indiana Jones was 1981.
Right.
And I had seen Jaws at age 6 in 1980, of course, 5 years after it had come out. And I knew that this is a Spielberg movie, but it was more of Elliot, the music of John Williams.
Yeah.
And just the sci-fi nature, the adventure of what it was like, right in my wheelhouse as a kid that age. And an irony, we have 2 movies that came out this year that are paying homage to E.T. this year, 2025, that have come out this year, that have paid homage to E.T. We'll talk about them as we get, because this, obviously, you said Super 8 and stuff like that.
Sure.
Paid, and Stranger Things have played homage to the 80s genre, the nostalgia of the 1980s, and kids on bikes and stuff. And I love Stranger Things. I absolutely love Super 8. Like, you, not as much Super 8, but Stranger Things is right up my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think the the thing about what Spielberg especially with this movie, is that he has the ability to understand a child's wonderment, like what it takes to, imagery wise, and what it takes, just all the sensories, especially what his relationship with John Williams and what they did with this score for this film. I think they understand a child's mind in a lot of ways, because, like, one thing that a lot of movies don't do these days that are films for families is they're too afraid to get scary. And there are, there's a lot of parts, especially at the beginning of this film, that are scary, that would scare most kids today, especially. But that's part of what it is to be a kid, is to be afraid because everything's new, everything's different, everything's exciting. And for a kid that's got not a father figure, he doesn't have a lot. He's probably feeling very vulnerable, our Elliot character in this film. And to stumble upon an alien, a thing that is not known to this world, and befriend it, and then have it slowly be, be under danger throughout, as the movie goes on. I think it's all the thing. He really knows how to create a story and create characters that really connect with children. And he also, of course, knows how to work with children. He's done many great child performances in over his whole career. Andrew, jump in.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're kind of right. Rewatching this movie for the first time in many, many years, it did strike me how this is a different type of children's story, different type of children's movie, specifically within the craft of the filmmaking. We all know Spielberg's a master craftsman, but no one really takes making a children's movie this seriously. He made just the start of this movie feels like like this is almost a successor to Close Encounters, which is of course not a children's movie at all. That's a serious sci-fi movie.
The ships look similar,
but
don't
at
they?
the very beginning of the movie, for the first several moments, when we're introduced to the character of E.T., it's at night, in the dark, in the woods. We don't really know what's going on. It's incredibly dark and sinister and moody, with all of the adult characters in the woods, chasing after this ET character. So it's very unsettling to start. So you're like, is this an alien type of scary movie? Not scary movie, but something more dramatic. And the movie is rather dramatic, but it's dramatic from the perspective of a child, which is different than from an adult.
Sure.
And you see it from a child's perspective. From
the whole movie's told from
down on the
Elliot.
ground. Go ahead.
You don't see other than his mom, you really don't see any other adult doing anything in the movie. And when they do show adults, everything is from the waist down. It's almost as if they don't matter. They're just a presence. They're just a sinister presence. And that's all you need for this movie, because from a child's perspective, adults are more of a presence than they are an actual person. They have meanings, they're authoritarian, they're the bosses, they're the ones who make all the decisions, they're the ones who can tell you what to do. That's the way adults are to children's perspective. And the whole movie's like that, all the way up to the literal climax at the end when the government comes in. Nobody gets more authoritative than the government. You know what I mean? But literally watching the movie, I'm like, nobody takes a children's movie this seriously when it comes to constructing this movie. Not typically nowadays. When I think of children's programming now, even live action stuff, it's much, much lighter, much more catered to a wider audience. Even when it comes to craft, it's so basic. You're not the John Williams score. It feels like something you could put in a more serious film with, but serious in the sense like a Close Encounters, which I think he did the score for anyway. But it's just right away, there's no mistaking a John Williams score. Once you hear it right away, it's so distinct nowadays because it's so built in our mind. We just know it. What a perspective. Now, Dan, you said you saw it when you were 8 years old, which I guess is the perfect age. Did you see it subsequently over the years after that?
Yes, I have. I've seen it many, many times. This is one of my favorite films of all time. It's still on my top 10 to 15 of all time. I mean, all time. It doesn't lose its luster to me. I've seen it so many times.
Have you seen it on the big screen since?
Yeah. When they did the 40th anniversary last year or the year before, I can't remember how long ago that was, but I did go to a big screen and see it with a buddy of mine who had never seen it before. Wow. Saw it for the first time in Dolby or IMAX. I think it was Dolby or IMAX. I can't remember what it was. And he was just like, wow, that's amazing. I said, 40 years after I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a timeless movie. I don't think there's anything that this movie that it really doesn't age. And even the effects of the thing, because E.T. was a practical effect. It's amazing. And I think also you can see that, especially in how Spielberg tries to how he tells stories, he learned a lot, and he still uses it today. He learned a lot from Jaws. The idea of obstructing, keeping yourself from showing too much. So especially that opening scene you were talking about, Andrew, where we never, for the whole movie up until the end, you don't ever see the government people's face. There's symbolism. There's keys. The guy with the keys.
Guy with the key. You know who the guy is. He's got the keys.
Yeah, the keys guy is the guy you want to
Peter
stay away from.
McNaughton? Is it Charles or Peter McNaughton? I forget.
I think it's Peter.
Peter McNaughton.
And then when that Jeep first shows up, it's got that the sound. The sound of the Jeep. So then it passes the house one night. That it's them. They're around. There's a lot of visual cues and visual symbolism that is used a lot in the movie. That is just great storytelling. That's just great filmmaking. That's I think what is lacking some today. A lot more classic visual storytelling, and not so much exposition, feeling the need to explain something through a lot of talking. Of course, we still got a lot of great filmmakers that know that, but when we're talking about the mainstream, this was a mainstream movie. You're not getting that type of mainstream. This was like the highest grossing film of all time at the time.
Until Avatar passed it.
Until he passed himself, I think, with Jurassic Park later.
And then, of course, Titanic. And then
Titanic was then past that.
That's right.
Yeah. But for a movie on that level to have that kind of impact and reach that many people, it's like that we're just missing that in today's mainstream film going. And but it's interesting that Spielberg is now going to be making apparently another movie in that vein. Something he's working on a new sci-fi film that's apparently harkening back to something similar to this, his next film. So
I thought it was Bullet. His remake of Bullet was his next with Bradley Cooper.
I don't think so. I think he's got a sci-fi film coming out that's supposed
he might
to
have
be
already made Bullet. Now that I think about it,
it's possible. It's possible
later this year or sometime next year.
But before we move on with our thoughts, we got Adam Schofield back in here. He's got some other things here. This one's interesting to me. Do you know the possible origins of E.T. and Satyajit Ray? He took a script to Hollywood in the 60s about the Indian village kid meeting an alien. The project never went anywhere. And I'd heard about this. I haven't investigated it that much. I know there's like a script out there you can read and stuff, but I had heard that Satyajit Ray had this whole story, his script that he brought and he wanted to try to make, and then it got turned down. But somehow then E.T. was made, not that long after that, many years, and the people were wondering, well, did they steal the idea? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Who knows?
Perhaps. It wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time
somebody stole stories, but it's got Spielberg's spin on it. I don't think it's exactly a ripoff, but then we got some more here. He's saying Spielberg was on set at the time. Says E.T. Has some rough edges, family dynamic wise, rough language, arguing. It's a bit of a kitchen sink drama, and also Close Encounters had them edges as well. So,
yeah, I will say that E.T. does have way more domestic themes in it than I think people remember it for. We all remember it for the magic, the wonder, the E.T. story with the alien, and and that relationship with Elliot. But then there's there's an other side to it with the family, where, like you said, it is a movie about a broken home, a family that's clearly going through or has gone through a divorce. It's a single mother with 3 young children trying to figure out how to get by, pretty much. The brothers have like a little contentious relationship because that's what brothers do. The little sister is kind of just annoying because she's kind of like tagging along around with them and whatnot. Played by Drew Barrymore, who is actually fantastic in the movie as playing that role.
And she's the one that always gets highlighted. But I think Henry Thomas is the stand for
Henry
sure.
Thomas is very, very good. And I mean, he's got to carry the movie. I mean,
he's
it's
carrying
a story.
The movie. Yeah,
it's a story. And I think the older brother character plays things pretty well too.
They're all good.
They're all very good.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, I've always kind of said this, when it comes to movies with with children, centered around children that carrying the movie, their performances can make or break the film, and I think this one makes it. Definitely does. And obviously Drew Barrymore went on to have a career. Henry Thomas went on to have a career all the way up to this day. Dee Wallace is still acting as well, the mother. It's interesting. Just
she had to do a lot of work with a little screen time. Like if you really look at it, it's really not a lot.
Way less than I thought, than I remembered.
That kitchen sequence when he says that the father's in Mexico with another woman, that was really a tough moment. For
what it was
stuff like that too. That just gives you like you were saying, Stephen. There's no big exposition scene. There's just little hints that the father's out of the picture. Like we never even see him. We hear about him that he's off in Mexico. It's almost, he could just be anyplace else.
Yeah, it's almost like when you think about Toy Story and how there's never a dad there, and you're just like, they never say anything, but you're like, well, he's obviously it's a single mom.
Yeah,
because you never see a dad.
That's very true. Didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And
just to talk about what Adam said about crying. Yeah, there's two scenes in the movie when it looks like E.T. is gonna die. I'm as an 8-year-old, I'm crying. I'm bawling. I'm bawling as a 8-year-old watching this movie. And obviously I don't cry now as an adult who've watched this movie dozens and dozens of times. And then when he says bye, I will, and he points to me, he says, I will always be in here.
That's the scene that gets me.
Those two scenes as an 8-year-old, just the waterworks. You just got the waterworks on those two
very
scenes.
Emotional.
As an 8-year-old, as a child, and as an adult, I'm very emotional, but I don't cry.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of
an 8-year-old.
I mean, there's a whole underlying here of this empathetic connection between Elliot and E.T. that's pretty instant, where they have some type of connection with one another.
There's a telekinetic literal telekinetic.
But I feel like it's more of like a commentary on empathy.
It is.
And children's connection with things that like adults don't have connections with. You know what I mean? Children's emotions and adult emotions are very, very different in terms of how they connect with people and how they see things from people's perspective.
It's an innocence thing. They're both
they're
both innocent, lost innocent things, just trying to find their home.
And it's like an animal though, an animal can have a connection with somebody, like say a bird or some kind of an animal that lost its mother or whatever. And if you become friends with it, if you find an animal sick or something and you nurse it back, it will develop a connection to you. So similar to like an animal, Elliot E.T. developed a connection to Elliot, and it was because of his quote unquote powers. It was a little bit more of a connection.
No. I get what you're saying, like an imprinting thing.
Yes, exactly.
But I don't know that I would use that necessarily as an example, because I would say that E.T. is more intelligent. He's not an animal.
Yeah, you're right.
He's more like an equal. He's a human. He's like it's a human connection. It's more like Andrew said, like empathizing. They both have very similar mental situations. So that's why E.T. connects with him, because that actual telepathic connection, of course, comes from E.T. So he feels really close to Elliot. He feels like he's being protected, feels that he's being kept safe, and so he binds with him. And so to keep him safe, he binds with him. He's essentially held, but at the same time, when he got sick, he then of course put Elliot in danger. Yeah, so it's like, but it's that moment at the end when the music swells up and it's big, and then it goes quiet, and E.T. says, I will be right here. I'll always be right here, in your heart, like I always, and of course the thing with E.T. is his heart glow, their hearts glow, you see it. There's a visual, dude, that scene gets me even today. That scene gets me. I
Yeah, it's
don't
one of the
bawl,
most-
but it gets me
yeah.
like I get emotional for sure.
It's one of the most
Yeah,
heartwarming
it's-
scenes I think in the history of movies. Really,
It is.
There's a reason why they show it. They show it in what, like every single montage of great movie moments of cinema history. There's always several shots from ET that are
Yeah.
in the movie. There's the glowing finger when you see that for the first time, when
Yeah.
it's like the shadow over Elliot's face. The glowing ET, of course, their encounter at the end as they're saying goodbye. Those are always shown in every montage.
Yeah, Adam's right. John Williams rips your guts out. Like, it's to me my favorite John Williams score. Like, I've listened to a lot of his scores, and I'm sure there's some that I've not listened to. But like, if you listen to the main theme of this song of ET, like it goes through so many changes. It's
Oh,
that
I can whistle it. I can whistle, but we don't want to whistle.
and it goes through so many ups and downs.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so
Oh,
epic.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's such an it's to me, this movie personifies the best of Steven Spielberg personally to me. I mean, the adventure, the
yeah.
sentimentality, the emotionality, the like
camaraderie between the brothers and sister,
yeah,
the kids, the relationship
and
between
how he
the
and
kids and the mother.
visual filmmaking language, the music, like it's all there for me. Like that's to me, between this and Jurassic Park, I have a hard time choosing with like the best version of what Spielberg has to offer. But like, we'll get to Jurassic Park one day, I know. Yeah, I mean, I this isn't my pick, but you picked one that
it's my
this
pick.
would have been on my list.
Yeah,
So.
well, I mean, I look. I mentioned earlier there's two movies that came out this year that pay homage to E.T., and one of them is The Legend of Ochi from
I've seen that.
A24 that came out a couple of months ago. I mean, if you watch that movie, you're just feeling all the same feels you felt with E.T., and it's a really good movie. It's an underrated movie that I think not a lot of people have seen this year. That's really a good movie. And then one that's just came out this week called Elio. Is it ironic that the name of the character is Elio without the and then he has a single mother.
That's just a Disney thing. That's just a Disney thing.
They play a little different on the parental thing. He didn't have brothers and sisters. He's kind of a kid by himself, but he has this interest in space and exploration and aliens and stuff like that. And he develops a relationship with a alien creature in the movie. I'm not going to give too much away in case you guys decide to see LAO. But it's 40-something years later. People are still paying homage to one of the great films of all time, not just Spielberg's films, in my opinion, one of the great films of all time. And I believe it still does hold up to this very day. You could say whatever you want, people out there.
Some people don't think it's as Adam said earlier in the comments. People for some reason look at sentimentality as like a negative in film, like being sentimental or being. It's like they don't understand that there's a line, like the line between being emotional and being sentimental, and there's nothing wrong with either. But it's like,
I mean, to play devil's advocate, I think people are very aware of emotional manipulation in movies nowadays, way more so than we were in the past. And I think perhaps people feel like E.T. does that. But I would also say that it comes off much more genuine than I've seen in other films that go for that. It comes off much more organic because of Elliot, and the relationship with E.T. is much more. But there's a better foundation for that. Than there is in other films.
The only thing that I think a movie as long as the movie earns its moments of sentimentality, there's nothing wrong with it. If you just kill somebody for no reason, then that's when it's being manipulative. But movies are always trying to manipulate you. There is no movie that doesn't try to manipulate you. It's the idea is to show you something, to get something, to bring emotion into you in some way. Hopefully, whether it's joy or sadness or something, all movies are manipulative. So that's not even really a good thing.
Reasoning.
It's not a good reasoning. You're supposed to be manipulated. You're supposed to be moved. And you're supposed to be, able to be on the, if you're not on the movie's wavelength, that's fine. But like, and some people are just not sentimental. They look at the world differently, and that's fine. But sentimentality,
schmaltz is a thing. Schmaltz is a thing. You need schmaltz sometimes. It adds a different level of creativity for filmmakers when you have schmaltzy kinds of themes and things like that. If you have just dramatic, everything is dramatic all the time, you don't have sentimentality.
I just think people think that it needs to be earned harder, like that whatever it is needs to be, like you said, more dramatic. It needs to be more real world to be earned. And I'm like, well, everything don't have to be that necessarily that hard.
Yeah, especially in the movie when we're dealing with aliens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Once that's introduced to the factor, I think this idea of reality definitely goes away. Or, you know what I mean? Like, if it was a movie about a kid and his, pet dog or something like that, something like Homeward Bound, you know what I mean? Where it's something like that, where it's more real world, I guess you could say real world in quotes, types of relationships. This is, once you introduce the sci-fi element to it, you can kind of do whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I think like, the whole package, of course, is there to manipulate. Music is the biggest manipulator of any movie.
Especially musical scores. And
musical scores change. They're the tone setters for whatever the scene is. So like, if you want to blame anybody, you blame John Williams. It ain't the movie's fault. Like,
I want to tell you something. Sometimes people, you can get, we know we go with the Rotten Tomatoes meter and the IMDb score and all these things, but what I sometimes will go off of is peers. What do the other filmmakers think of this thing? And I look at like the prequels. One of the aliens in the prequels, in the Senate scenes, what's one of the alien races? E.T. What's in E.T.? I got a kid dressed up as Yoda. So these guys are friends, but they also have respect for the craft of filmmaking that the other people have. George Lucas had a respect for what Steven Spielberg did all those years before, and obviously Steven Spielberg had respect for what George Lucas is doing previously with Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. So when you have filmmakers, great filmmakers like those guys, and they're paying homage to each other and they're showing respect for each other, that tells you something. That adds a next level to it, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely culturally significant. It's harder today. It's harder today because I don't think there's been much of through the big studios. There's not much of a push to be standing out in any way. It's more, what is the next thing we can copy over and over again. We got to leave it to independent films to help us with most of the original content that we get. So I did feel
really glad to have watched The Legend of Ochi. It's one of my favorite films of the year because it really did bring me back.
Well, that's A24, so that's
A24. They kind of do with Elio. Multiple directors, multiple writers on Elio, I might add. But it still brought me back that's what hit me when I was watching that movie. Oh my God, these guys are trying to rip off E.T. here with this. And the character's called Elio. So, I mean, that seems like pretty obvious to me.
Yeah. Well, Josephine's popping in saying, hey.
Hey, Josephine.
I forgot.
She says, ever been to the E.T. ride at Universal? I have.
So have I.
And Dan lives there.
Yeah, Dan, I thought you would have.
I don't remember. I've been to Universal multiple times. I don't remember if I've been on that ride or not. I could have been. I just don't remember. I'm sorry.
And she lost her hat on that ride. I'm sorry, Josephine. I lost the hat on her.
Have you ever lost a hat on a roller coaster? That was always one of my biggest fears.
I have. I lost back when I was in. I didn't get mine back. This was back in middle school. We went to a place we call Busch Gardens. That's in our state. It's like on the border of Virginia and North Carolina.
We have one here in Florida.
Okay. And so I did a roller coaster there, and I lost it. I lost my hat. It was gone. It was a baseball hat. I didn't give a shit. But yeah, that happens if you don't remember.
I remember the ET ride so vividly because you pretty much go on like the bicycle
Yeah,
ride.
you go on the bicycle and
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah,
do it
like I
after,
think you sit in like kind of like a fake bicycle type of
Yeah.
type of thing you
Yeah.
sit in, and then like when you end up flying, like the fake ET like pops up in front of you and you stop flying.
Yeah.
John Williams kicks in.
Yep.
It's a ton of fun.
Oh, that's too bad. I would have liked to have done that.
It should still be there, I think. I mean,
I
Really?
would
I
hope
believe
so.
so.
Universal Orlando? I've been there multiple times. I didn't even
I'm
know.
pretty sure. I mean, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, it
Ah,
should still be there.
I have to go look for that again.
Because I was there 5 years ago. Something. Yeah.
really?
And
You went on it then?
I believe
Yeah.
so. I remember
Yeah,
going.
I haven't been there since like 1995, so it was
Yeah.
there then.
I went
Yeah.
there last year and I didn't ride that ride. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened.
It's like one of them indoor, like almost 3D kind of rides. It's not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
roller coaster
Yeah,
necessarily.
you sit, and it rocks back and
Yeah,
forth
yeah,
and up
it's
and
I have to
down.
look for that next time. I
Yeah,
have to
that
look
was-
for that because that's I don't want to miss that before they take it away.
Yeah. I don't think it's a classic. I don't know, but yeah, Andrew, did you get any further in your rating? Or are you still right below?
I'm so
Obsessed?
close to the obsessed, but
Yeah.
I'm not quite there.
You like other Spielberg films more.
That's the
But
that's
before
pushing me back.
you get to
There are
before
other
you
Spielberg
get
films
to
I
that,
think are
I have-
better.
I have something else to say though. I want to say. Like, look, we see kids in movies, all right? Obviously, you talked about Drew Barrymore, okay? And she's had an amazing career.
Yeah.
This is a career-making role for
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas. And yeah, he's had roles here and there. He's done this or that or whatever. He played some villains but he never kind of had that career that Drew Barrymore had, you know?
Yeah.
And I always thought to myself, was this kid just like Christopher Reeve in this role where it was like he was never going to ever get anything better than Superman? He was never ever going to find a better role than playing Elliot in this movie? Or was he just, did we just love him so much in this movie, but in years later he just wasn't that good of an actor or something? What's your perspective on that? Because I always thought that was strange that he never really just went like skyrocket after
Some
that.
of this stuff is luck, man, and some of it's they're kids, so it's their lives are still controlled by parents. Who knows what? I'm sure that there's, if we look into it, there's reasons, but it's probably part of its personal life stuff. I mean, Drew Barrymore,
she had Firestarter, and then she had Poltergeist, right? No, not Poltergeist, Firestarter after this.
Yeah, so there's like career trajectory, whatever luck it's involved in that, but girls mature faster than the boys do. Boys go through this awkward phase, and I think a girl that started young in the acting world and continued through it probably has a lot more opportunities than the young boys, to be honest, in that age.
It really
range.
also, I mean, Dan just kind of like said it a little bit. Typecasting has definitely been a thing
Sure.
forever. I mean, Daniel Radcliffe and the kids who were in Harry Potter, they're still typecast as those roles, even though those movies ended, 14 years ago at this point?
I've seen them all in other
Well,
things,
I mean,
but nobody ever remembers.
Emma
them.
Watson.
Radcliffe's had a
Emma
whole other
Watson.
career.
Emma Watson just doesn't have a desire to be an actress. She
She stopped. She completely stopped. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the other
like, the last movie she was in was Little Women. That was the one I remember her being.
Either
The Circle.
Little Women,
that
The
crappy
Circle,
that Circle movie with Tom Hanks is terrible.
That was awful.
Not a great movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Rupert Grint was working with M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in that
On,
series that's on Apple, and he was in Knock on the Cabin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still working, man. He's still doing
working.
Stuff. Yeah.
He was with the Guillermo del Toro series on Netflix.
Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, Cabinet of Curiosities. So he's not doing a lot of stuff, but he over here in the States, he's working in Britain a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah. They have a whole industry over there of stuff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, like, going back to Henry Thomas, is that if you look at his IMDb career, he's got massive credits all the way up till now. He's working a lot with Mike Flanagan and a lot of work that they're.
Yeah, I was gonna say he did the Netflix show.
That's it.
Yeah, he was in all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure
How's
he'll
Fall
probably
of
end
the
up
House
being
of
in
Usher,
Paris
was it?
somehow.
Was it the Fall of the House of Usher he was in? Is that the last?
Yeah, he was in all of them.
Yeah.
Was he in that one too? I know he was in that one.
Let's see.
God, what's the big
Midnight
one?
Mass? Was he in
was
that
in
one?
Yeah, he was in Fall of the House of Usher. He was in The Midnight Mass. He was in The
okay.
Haunting of Bly Manor.
Haunting of Bly Manor. That's
So
right.
he did.
And
He,
he was
he
the
hooked
Haunted
up with
Hill
Mike Flanagan, which is good for him.
He was in Doctor Sleep as well.
Yeah.
He played the bartender in
There you
Doctor.
go.
Wow.
I'm assuming at the Overlook Hotel. But yeah, he's in all of that stuff now. He's still working. Drew Barrymore, like we said, does a daytime talk show now. I mean,
Yeah.
she's still
She's
doing stuff. But in terms of like career trajectory, it's not like a lot of these young actors haven't been working. It's just like people just only remember them for that one defining role, and then like they just like stop looking for
I
them.
think it's that,
You know?
and I think it's just you just don't know what you're. I mean, you don't know. Not only do you know what the public wants by the time they're old enough, but it's like these kids are young. You don't know what they're going to be. They're not even matured yet. You don't know
All right,
what
one
they're
more
going to
thing.
be. So
I want Andrew look this up. Look up the 5 best actor contenders in 1982 for that Academy Awards. And I want to put this to you guys. Do you think Henry Thomas deserved to be in that 5 that year? I know Jack Lemmon was in there. I know that for a fact. And Paul Newman was in there for The Verdict.
So we're talking lead actor?
Lead actor, because he's the lead. He's the lead. He's not supporting. It's Jack Lemmon for the one where his son gets kidnapped in Chile and he has to go down there. Good point, Adam. Good point.
yeah, Christian Bale did
escape. Newsies. He was in Newsies. Well, not Newsies. But
Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the
big
Sun,
one,
and then
which
Newsies.
is a Spielberg movie, of course.
Yeah. Good
Spielberg
point.
movie.
That's a good point, Adam. I'm glad you brought that up about Christian Bale. But yeah, I argue that maybe Henry Thomas, and this is why I've been saying this for years, that there needs to be an under 18 Academy Award acting category. You could put 3 boys and 3 girls, whatever. But I feel like the young actors and actresses aren't getting the praise that they deserve in movies. Like, we haven't got a lot. The last under 18 actor to win an Academy Award was Anna Paquin for The Piano. Obviously, Haley Joel Osment was nominated. The Kid in the Room was nominated. I forget his name. He's almost an adult now. Who do you got, Andrew?
Yeah, what do we got, Andrew?
So for that Academy Awards, the nominees were Ben Kingsley, who won for Gandhi.
Yeah,
Dustin Hoffman was nominated for Tootsie, Jack Lemmon for Missing, Paul Newman for The Verdict, and then Peter O'Toole for My Favorite Year. These are all heavy-hitting actors.
Yeah, it's pretty stacked.
This is a murderer's row of like the greatest actors of the last 50 years.
No, it is. It is. That would have been a hard 5 to get into if
I mean, it's also we know it's all political anyway.
Yeah,
so they're not going to some kid's not going to campaign to be an Oscar nominee.
No,
yeah, exactly.
He did make the 5 for Best Picture.
It did get nominated. Yeah.
So, arguably, you can say if you're Universal,
you could make an argument, but it's
that Henry Thomas deserved to be in there.
You could make an argument.
I just want to talk about it with you guys while we're talking about this.
I don't want to talk about this too much because I don't like Oscar talk because it's all, political and
ironic.
It's all objective because
you want to hear something ironic is that the Best Picture nominees for that year were all of those movies that I just mentioned that those actors were in,
except for
and E.T. Like it's Gandhi, E.T., Missing, Tootsie, and The Verdict were all Best Picture nominees.
Yeah. So it was who was it? Peter O'Toole
was the odd one out
over Henry Thomas. So I always thought that was strange. How does E.T. get nominated for Best Picture and your Best Actor, the kid that carries the whole movie on his shoulders?
Some people would argue that it's more strange when the director doesn't get nominated. That's to me more strange.
Or screenplay.
Did he get in? Did Spielberg get in that year?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is when that happens and the director doesn't get nominated, even though his movie gets nominated, that's when it's more weird than an actor not getting nominated for it. Because, the actor carries it, but it's the director that directs them. It's their performance and the editing. That's the other one. The editing is way more important than the actor.
Spielberg was nominated.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the winner that year was Richard Attenborough for Gandhi. And you had Sidney Lumet, Wolfgang Peterson, Sidney Pollack,
Wolfgang Peterson got nominated for something.
For Das Boot.
Wow,
Oh,
interesting.
what a great film. 82 besides that was an amazing year because we had the Wrath of Khan in 82. We had we had The Thing in 82. What a great year for movies, 82.
It's a good year. Yeah. But that is our discussion on this trip down memory lane. E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. We went down Dan's road this time, which of course ended up being a side road to my road. And then Andrew kind of likes this road, but he's like, I don't know
I'm pretty close to being on the same level as you guys.
I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like for some reason you're just. I think he's just mad because we weren't as obsessed with Knight's Tale.
With the Knight's Tale?
Yeah, he's mad.
Perhaps I'm stabbing you guys in the back.
No, come on.
The thing is, for me, when it comes to Spielberg, it's in my top 5, but there's like a couple of movies that I put ahead of it for Spielberg.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about Jaws earlier. I think Jaws is kind of up there for me.
Sure.
This is number 1 for me, by the way, if you haven't guessed.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I don't want to get into this. I hate that one movie. What's that one movie that we watched? That remember when we watched
with that guy? Oh, yeah.
Remember Chasing Labels? We had to watch that one movie that was so terrible. It was an ET ripoff. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, oh my goodness, Pod People.
God, it's so bad.
Pod People. That was its alternate title.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I've seen that movie twice.
Now, Mac and Me is fun to watch because it's
Mac and Me is fun to watch. That's a straight ET ripoff.
What's the line in the movie? Me and my wife I watched it with my wife one time, and it became a thing where they're like, pretty nice. I'll just be like, I'll just turn to my wife sometimes and be like, pretty nice.
But now the Indian Forrest Gump, I heard was amazing. So I guess it just all depends what filmmaker is making the movie.
Well, and it's just sometimes these things are made on a really low budget just to try to cash in on something, and E.T. was big ass in Turkish E.T. It's a gay neighbor, hijinks ensue.
Oh boy! I'm glad I haven't seen that.
If I knew more about E.T. ripoffs, we would talk about it, but I don't have much to say other than that most of them have turned me off.
Yeah, there's 2 good ones that came out this year, so I would recommend Elio.
Well, I wouldn't say they're ripoffs. They're inspired.
Yeah,
but ripoffs are a whole. There's some movies that are literally just stealing it.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But yeah, that is it for this down memory lane with E.T. Next time, it will be my turn. Yeah. And I'm excited to do this one because this one is one that it was one of the first movies I thought about when we started doing this with this new criteria. And we're going to do Disturbia. 2007, 6, 7, Disturbia, starring Shia LaBeouf and Carrie-Anne Moss. And was it what's the bad guy's name?
Of course,
David Morse.
David Morse. Oh, I love him as a character.
Directed by DJ Caruso, a guy that kind of like was hanging out for a minute and then now he just like disappeared.
Yeah.
As a director, but it's a great movie, great cast, fun. Not a ripoff as we were just talking about, but definitely a homage to Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. We'll get into it on the next episode, but thanks, guys. Thanks for coming down this memory lane, and we'll catch you on the side.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, I appreciate you guys. This is a really good conversation. I was hoping we'd have a good conversation. I was just glad that we really had a lot of fun talking about this. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I got mine too. Yeah,
I don't have my 4K with me on my hand right now. It's about 15 feet away.
What I did was I can't get it out easy, but so I bought this movie twice.
Oh, I
got this steel book that's way nicer.
Oh,
that is nice.
Yeah, so I used that as my insert for my 4K because this was a Blu-ray steel book. So I put my 4K in this and slide it in the box. So I combined editions.
Nice.
Yeah. But yes, let's end this thing. We've had like 3 stop endings on this episode. Thanks for coming down this memory lane with us, and we'll watch you. We'll see you on the side roads watching movies. Later.